A very happy Sunday on this March 7th. It's a beautiful spring day here in Douglas County, Oregon. We are very blessed to have with us the Reverend Donna Smith, who gave the talk this week titled The Prophecy of the Eagle and the Condor. So hopefully we'll have a rich, robust discussion about that. And who wants to go first? Oh, JC had her hand up first.
Yeah.
Yep, it's all you.
It was a very exciting experience listening to your story today. I loved the mythology of the condor and the eagle. It was just amazing. And then when you ran through a list of people who had written things all the way up to the math people, I thought, oh, no wonder I'm on with this. You just went through a book list of what I've read over the last 50 years. And so I've decided, okay, I'm going to get those books out where I can see them. And I went to a workshop with the mind math person, and that was totally incredible. They demonstrated it so clearly that a person who was doing a task that they were supposed to get it right, when they gave that person emotional support, whatever they were tied up to, the numbers just went up in his capacity to work with the problem. And I just sat in the audience with my mouth hanging open. And it certainly tells teachers what works and what doesn't work. So anyway, I was excited, Donna, and I'm already still excited. And I sure hope I do something before I get unexcited.
Stick with the passion. So just to clarify for me, you went to a HeartMath?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Yeah, I would love to do that.
And they proved their point. Because that was only about 10 minutes of the day, but they proved their point.
Yes, yes, and they have instruments that you can actually buy, and you can you can see what your heart and everything is doing and whether or not you're in coherence. I don't have one of those, but if you go onto the HeartMath website, they are there for sale. It's really, yeah. So you can keep track of what's going on with your heart and your coherence.
That's interesting.
Yes, it's very interesting.
That's really important right now, like you said.
Yeah.
I'm going to go get my book.
Okay. Well, you know, as I said, actually I said it Thursday, but you saw it today. I think HeartMath is one of our most important teachings today, because number one, it does bring that, you know, our intellect and our heart together, but it helps us access that wisdom that we really need today to help us, you know, go through this transition. So I guess I'm in love with HeartMath. I really, and it's so easy. It's just so easy. And it gets easier the more you practice it. And that's another thing I really love about it. We don't have to make this complex at all. We tend to, but we don't have to. So that's great. I'm glad you had that experience.
Interesting. You know, one part of your talk that I was kind of struck by is I've heard in recent times, I've heard from a lot of people describing the Western world, you know, like the European influenced world, as this hyper intellectual, non-emotional tradition. And I I guess I'm just curious where that notion comes from, because if you were to look at like the poetry of the troubadours or the romantics and art and music and even like the emo movements of the early 2000s, it seems like there are plenty of times that the Western world has been emotionally driven, you know, almost at the expense of anything else. Um, and yet we have this stereotype, I think, of the Western world as being hyper intellectual. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's probably dangerous to say that any culture, or whatever, is this way, because
Mhm.
there's always the different factors.
Oh no.
And I think that we have, using the our scientific history, that we are all separate, and that what's his name? I've just lost his name. The science that we've been using. Anyway, I can't think of his name.
Hmm. Can you describe him?
Well, yeah, that we're all separate, and that the world is run on, competition, survival of the fittest.
Oh, are you talking about Darwin?
Darwin, yes. See, and that's what has been driving us for so long, and that's what's been in the limelight. So maybe that's why we have that kind of reputation. But no, just like today, what we see is what the media wants us to see, and we don't see all of these other aspects of our society that are choosing, to come from a different way, or to combine them, like I was talking about. We need both. But we need to combine them and use them in that intelligence in a wise way. And that, to me, has been our problem. We have all this intelligence, but we're not using it for the benefit of the whole. And it has caused that discrepancy in, just in the people who have all the money. That discrepancy is getting wider and wider. And so, Anne's trying to get on too. Hi, Anne.
Yeah. Hi, I'm only listening because I'm driving. Go ahead.
Okay.
Just because there's a little bit of background noise, Anne, I went ahead and muted you. If you want to chime in, just let us know. I think you can unmute yourself too. Okay, great. Thank you for that. Who's next? Oh, I don't want to edit out dead space, people. Thank you. Okay, Lurley.
I just wanted to let Donna know how I appreciate the philosophy education and such. I am not at all like my son that enjoys studying these aspects, but I do appreciate them. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Yeah.
We do it.
I don't enjoy studying at all. So I do really well at grading papers at the fifth graders, as long as they give me a key that tells me what the right answers are.
That was
an answer key.
Yeah.
Sharon wanted to chime in.
Well, I am going to ditto what JC said earlier, because I really liked the metaphor of the eagle and the condor, as well as the marvelous list of what I've studied. And I decided I'm going to pursue HeartMath more. Mm-hmm. And in light of that, I would like to share that Jonathan Goldman has a radio show online every Wednesday at noon. And on April 14th, his guest will be internationally renowned scientist and speaker, Rollin McCraty, Director of Research of the HeartMath Research Center.
Yes.
April 14th.
He is amazing.
He doesn't say here, but all of the programs are usually at noon on the day stated. So
April 14th.
Is that a podcast or is that an actual station you're talking about?
it is a podcast. It's called Healing Sounds Radio.
Mhm.
And you can just do Healing Sounds Radio and it
Okay.
should come up. Or you can go to www.healthylife.net.
And one thing that Connie recommended, which I appreciated, is that if you share something that can be looked at online, maybe hop over to the Facebook page and throw that link in there.
Yeah, also if you could
You'll
maybe
have to
add
help me
comments.
that out.
All right. Oh yeah, you could send it to me. And I could do that.
Okay.
Yeah. But Donna, maybe you could tell us a little bit about, since you seemed excited about who Sharon was referencing, maybe you could tell us a little bit about.
Yeah. Well, as I was saying, the HeartMath Institute started in 1991, and Rollin was in it from the beginning. And if you ever go on their website, you can find all kinds of different links where you can see how they did experiments and, get testimonials from the different people, Howard Martin. And, it's just fascinating to watch what they've done and how they have held these experiments and everything and proven the power of the heart and that electromagnetic field that is so large from our heart. So I get excited talking about it, and I have several books that they've written that I have, and it's motivational because I'm tired of all of the suffering and all of the stuff. We've got to stop this. We've got to change it. And the only way I know how right now is going to the heart, where we can find the compassion and the wisdom to make these changes. So that's why I love HeartMath. And yeah, Rollin that's going to be fun. I'm going to make sure I do that. Even if I'm working, I'm going to take a break and do that. And also I've noticed in a lot of the people that I follow, Greg Braden, Bruce Lipton, Lynn McTaggart, I follow them a lot. I can't remember their name right now. Why? Not thinking of things today. Anyway, the different organizations, that I work with and do their classes and all that. So many of them are including the HeartMath people now, because they're realizing how important that is to this consciousness, the raising of our consciousness. We have to look to the heart. There's an ancient story. I do not know the origins of it, but I read it, and I read it quite a while ago. But it says that when we first came to Earth, we knew who we were. Mm-hmm. We knew our powers. We communicated telepathically. When we wanted something, we would create it from our thoughts. And eventually, what happened was we forgot who we are. But all of those things that we could do before, we missed them. So we started looking outside of us instead of back within. We started looking outside of us and creating them outside. So communication, instead of telepathically, what have we got? We got phones, because we still want to communicate, but creating telepathically is really probably just a few people in the world can do that now. A lot of the indigenous people can actually do that. And so that's why we started with the technology. And when we started with the technology, that's when we also moved away from the heart. And that's kind of how this, and it's a story, but that saying, maybe it happened, maybe it didn't, but it could be true. So I think the evidence is apparent right now from what we've created and the trouble that we're in right now. So anyway, I just wanted to offer that too.
Yeah, that story, Donna, you know, we see the thread of that everywhere. The Bible itself has that thread. It wasn't until Adam and Eve were thrown out of the Garden of Eden that eventually we come to the Tower of Babel. And the Tower of Babel is communication by language instead of telepathic. And it is the Tower of Babel that separates people, where we could communicate across all continents without any kind of technology. But now, once we started language, everybody developed their own languages, and we began separating, and we started to look outside for information, and eventually come to a space of technology. And technology further divides, but actually there is the antithesis that's taking place, because it's connecting us internationally through its ability to translate through computer science. So we actually have come in a circle. And so it's perfect timing for us to be aware of HeartMath, and it's perfect timing, the great mutation, the fact that we are coming into this 200 years of air energy. We are in a space where all of this is coming together, and it's truly exciting when you look at it, you know. And television has lost its appeal in many ways, because television still continues to emphasize the emotional drive that includes violence and anger, and people getting angry is an emotional drive that creates news. But we have alternative types of information now available, and it's up to us as individuals to take responsibility to find the information that's out there that is creating a better world. Like the lady that I sent that information to you about, that's out of the United Nations, a whole group out of the United Nations. They're encouraging young people to take a step beyond and invent new things to help heal the earth. So, I mean, there are lots of good things happening, but it's up to us as individuals.
Right. Yeah. Donna, why don't you take a moment to respond to that if you want, and then Julianne has a question.
Okay. Yes, I agree. And I think that our technology, as I said, you know, in my talk, that, you know, can't dismiss it. However, if we can go to our hearts and we can use that technology for the benefit of everybody, that has not been happening, and that's the problem. And as Michelle said, there are so many really good things going on in the world, and we don't hear about them unless we as an individual go out and look for them, because our media is not really going to do that. It does it somewhat, but not very much, from what I understand and what I see. So that's why that, as I was talking also about, it's up to the individual, because humanity is not going to wake up and just say, oh gosh, we've been doing things wrong, let's, you know, it has to begin with the individual. And that's what's going to change the world. And there are a lot of people out there, just like the one I mentioned, you know, that young woman in Africa is taking plastic waste and making something usable out of it. That's wonderful. And that's just wonderful. And there's so much of that going on that we normally don't hear about. So yes, you know, going in and finding these things, finding the places where you want to support, maybe monetarily or in different ways, maybe even volunteering, is really up to us. It's up to us. And that's where the power lies. Yeah. Thanks, Michelle.
Go ahead, Julianne.
I'd just like to make the point that there have always been societies and individuals who have been able to communicate telepathically throughout time. It has not been lost. Yes. Pressures by, you know, the church labeling it as witchcraft, et cetera, drove it underground. But that certainly exists. And as an example, how do you think we communicate with our pet friends?
Yeah.
And they understand perfectly. Mm-hmm. So we all have that capability.
I agree. Every one of us, yes.
And the work of Rupert Sheldrake is documenting this.
Yeah.
He runs a very simple telephone telepathy test, and it's amazing how many people actually can do this lickety split with no training,
Yeah.
know who's calling
Interesting.
as the phone rings. And there are thousands of people who have responded. The test has been running for years. You can do it simply and it's free.
Yes. And that just shows us that who we are is still here. It's still
Yes.
here. All we have to do is pay attention to it. And I'm sure that every one of us here has had those kind of telepathic, instances where you need to do something, you need to call somebody, something's happened, and the pets are amazing, how you can communicate with them. Although my Abby was a little stubborn. but yeah, it's still with us. It has not been lost. It has just been hidden for so many. Or if they do, experience something like that, they're afraid of it. And they don't pursue it. They're afraid of it because they've been taught that that's weird, Yeah.
So I'll tell you what, Julianne and Sharon, if you wouldn't mind just popping an email to me with the things that you're referencing, and maybe I can put it in the description of the video when we post it, so anybody who's interested could check that out.
That's great, Michael.
Yeah, Laura Lee, and then we'll have JC.
Okay, I can't help but my entire world is around my children. And I talked my husband into having children, and so I gave him twin boys to begin with, and and identical twins. Well, I have to preface this also. All three of my sons are a little strange, and the twins, when they were before they would ever talk, they would communicate between themselves telepathically, and they couldn't understand why anybody else didn't understand what they were saying. I'm at the kitchen sink looking out the window, and Andrew my oldest, comes running up to the neighbor boy, and he stands maybe 6 inches away from him, maybe a foot, and looks him right straight in the face, and he's talking to him telepathically, and the child doesn't know what's going on, and he runs away. However, even in adulthood, Scott and Andrew could communicate without any phone calls, without anything else. One's in Tucson, Arizona, and the other one's in San Francisco, California. And Scott had appendicitis, had to have his appendix removed. And Andrew calls me from Phoenix and says, I've got the worst side ache. And I says, well, your brother went in for had his appendix removed. Oh, okay. I mean, it just, like I say, just really strange. And that's the way my husband and I looked at it. We, and then of course we had Michael, and that was the strangest of all. But,
I know this is being recorded, Laura Lee.
Yeah, he's going to mute me in a minute. But no, it was such a delight for us to experience all three of these boys, because they were so different, but yet very, very similar. Michael didn't have a twin to communicate with, but he was so in tune, his past and his present, and dare say his future.
Yeah, right.
Okay, I won't say anything.
You are always inches from being booted.
Yes.
No. We love Laura Lee.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, it was so fun. It was so much fun.
Yeah.
And the primary purpose of a mother of older or mature children, the primary purpose is to embarrass them.
Right. I know you
Yes.
think that. I know you think that's true. Okay, so Donna,
You want me to respond to that?
hey, you can respond or not respond to anything you want.
Well, I have a relationship with my youngest sister, Gail, who is much like that. It so many times we know that something's happening, and we get in contact with each other. We just feel it. and we know it. And Gail she's very intuitive, and she can do that with her friends and everyone. She just knows, and that's telepathic. That's that, you know, connection that we have. And I think that's important, and I hope that it's coming back, you know, and I hope people will awaken to accept it as something that's not scary, that it's actually our wisdom coming forth. So.
Well, you know what's interesting in all this conversation about telepathy is the vast majority of my teaching life has been teaching teenage girls, right? And I will tell you that teenage girls, if they're close, if they're friends, or women probably of all ages, can have entire conversations with themselves through glances. And it's not to say that men who are friends can't develop that ability either. It seems to be so core to the feminine, you know. JC wanted to jump in.
Well, I have not been very aware of telepathic thinking in myself. And then when I joined Lulene, I think nothing of saying, I can't find my such and such. And she'll go, look under your bed. You know, I mean, and so I obviously accept it because I asked her for it. Last week, I just had to contact a friend of mine who lives in Pennsylvania. And she texted back to me, thank you for thinking of us. Mother is dying, and her partner and she were standing on either side of Mother doing Reiki to help her go over. And I sent blessings.
Did everybody froze? Oh no.